Okay, we are in shape. So the topics for today, we are going to talk a bit about the economy of the project. Okay. There is, just to give you a disclaimer, I'm not going to go too much in detail. There is another course called Petroleum Economics, right? The professor is Trick the what? Trick the something. Yeah. And if you want more details, you can go to that course. And so we are here just to give you some of the idea how do you calculate the main economic indicators of the project, of what it depends, and how we are going to use it to show for our calculations what is the best option. Okay, but if you want more details to see how each part is calculated, especially on tax, especially on royalties, especially on depreciation, more advanced things, I recommend you to go to this course. Okay, it's Petroleum Economics. We are more concerned about the technical part, not so much about the economy. But we need the economy because the economy defines many of the decisions we take. We use just one economic indicator. We do what is the best value or the one that gives us an optimum value of the project. Okay. And I think the professor is called Trygve. I don't remember. Okay, you one comment about someone was asking at the end of last class. They say, okay, so why did you sum up from bottom up and not from top down? Okay, and that depends how you define this P10, P90, and P50. Okay, they say the chances, for example, what was it? P90, right? Yeah. Oh, sorry, P10, for example. So P10 is that we are sure that the value that we are reporting is that number or higher. Okay, so that's why higher, it's, let's say, 10, it's here someplace. Okay, P10. So if I sum all of them, I'm taking the probability of from that number up. Okay, because I'm summing all the probability of the preview of the higher of the numbers that are higher to that number. Okay, and when I say 50, I'm sure that the P50 value have at least that number or higher. Okay, if I say that number or lower, I will have to do the summation from top down. Okay, I'm 10% sure that I have, for example, 10% sure will be someplace 90 here, that I have at least that number or lower. Okay, but that's not the definition of P10, P50, P90. If that value is equal or higher. Okay, but be aware of that. If you sum it from top down, equal or lower, and if you sum it from bottom up, equal or higher. Okay. So let's make a small comment on that. And here I have okay, then for example 89. Okay, and when I go from top down, I say that probability that my TRR is equal or lower than, and in this case will be 51. Okay, depends how I sum bottom up or top down. Then one more thing that was missing, yep, I don't think, let's see. Okay, let's go right away to the topic for today, which is we are going to call it cash flow and economic indicators of the project. Okay, and here the project we are saying is the field development project. Okay, and for that we are going to put in the center our company. Okay, remember that the company usually they subdivide in projects, so we are calculating only for that particular project. So how should we call this project? So let's say NTNU Oil Inc. Okay, if we are in Norway, maybe we want to put AS. Okay, and we are going to say field project. What do you say? TPG 4230 field. Okay, that's our particular project. Okay, so initially I'm going to put arrows to the box to say where I'm getting, when am I getting inflow of money to the project, and arrows going out of the box to see when am I just cash flow or money going out of the project. And it's going to change depending where you are in the field. Okay, initially you are spending a lot of money. Remember the revenue, the only source of revenue, and we can put it here very early, revenue. So that's plus, that's revenue. Okay, that comes from the sales of hydrocarbon. Okay, that means oil, gas, can sell LNG, I can sell NGL or LPG. What is the meaning of LNG? Liquefied natural gas. And NGL, natural gas liquids. Okay. Then LNG is mainly methane. That I compress it and I cool it until it reaches as a liquid state. Okay, NGL are all of those liquids from C4 to C3 or to C5 that I managed to take them out of the gas mixture. An LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, and that comes from Okay. Let's see what. Okay, I also have oil, gas, and here something important is also condensate. Okay. Condensate that comes with the gas, and remember in gas developments, it can be a huge or an important part of the sales in the field. The gas value is relatively low, but the condensate usually has very high values, especially if I'm producing quite a lot. Liquefied petroleum gas. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so that's usually the source of revenue. And now during the investment phase, during that I have to make a lot of expenditures, I have two main sources of income that I use for the project. One of them is loans. Okay. And this can be banks, okay, can be individuals. Trusts, okay. And then I can get it, so that's in a way that's outside the company, and I have also inside the company that we call shareholders. Mainly from the shareholders. Okay, I'm not going to put all the others, but that's what we call, that comes from the internal investment from the company, from the equity, the value of the shares that I have in the company. Okay. then comes the, so that's really all the, more or less all the income that we have in our company in the project. So in late phases, when I'm producing, this is going to be the main income. But in the early phase, that's going to be the main income when I'm going to get the money to pay for everything that I have to acquire, okay? And then the expenses, then comes the not so fun part. There are many expenses. So what are the expenses that I have? Okay, and also one comment here. If you see, this big part of the money for the project comes from the shareholders. So you have to make, in all of these decision gates that you have in the process, you have also to consult with the people that, with the shareholders. Okay? You have to show them what is the status of the project, and you have to get their approval. They might stop it. They might say, no, we don't like the project. We want to stop it. Okay? So it's the consultation with stakeholders. During the decision gates. Now let's put the expenses in blue. So first we have the capex. These are capital expenditures. And here we have all the engineering studies. We have the facilities, we have the offshore structure, we have the subsea components, pipeline, we have the installation, and so forth. So this shouldn't be so I'm asleep and you're also asleep. It should be minus, right? Going out of the project also we have, and that happens, so these two happen at a relatively early phase. This is maybe the first thing that happens. Then you start spending it in capex. And then later in the next in time that happens is the drillex. That really formally should be included in capex, but it's so important that we put it in a separate category. So that drillex is just expenditures to drill, what takes to drill the well, drilling expenditures. And then we have, for example, the rig, daily fee. We have well completion. Okay. We have well components, well construction. The services, if you have to do a cement log, if you have to do some other kind of logging in the well, so well services. How many of you are here taking the course of Erik Skogen, Petrophysics?
First or second?
Yeah, the first one. You are taking. Okay.
They have.
That you have taken it.
Yeah.
It's not taught this semester. Okay, then you have drillex. Then we have OPEX. Okay, that happens later in the when I'm already operating. And in OPEX I have, for example, salaries. I have maintenance. I have to pay for consultants. I have to pay for energy consumption. Renting offices or renting costs. Then I have chemicals, if I need any sort of chemicals in my process. processing. If I need to do any stimulation on my wells, that's also included here. See what else I'm missing. The insurance. Okay, if I have to pay, I told you some tariffs that I have to pay to transport my gas in the pipeline. The rent, yes. And then I have
Taxes.
yeah, then I have the taxes. And I already ran out of space. I said this year I will make it that everything will fit, and I didn't manage. Okay? Maybe next year. You need to have some objectives for next year. If someone makes it nice, I will take a photo, a picture, and then I will do it like that next year. Okay. Then I have tax and royalties, and we will talk a little bit about this later, how they are calculated. But this basically goes to the government. And depends on the agreement that the company has, first on the fiscal system that we have in the country, and then the agreement that the company has with the government or with the relevant authorities. Okay. In some cases, it's you have like two levels. You have the government, and then you have also the state, which also might have some tax. Okay. Okay, and this allows you to, then after all of that, I have some, let's put it here below, I have cash flow, okay, net cash flow. After I sum all of that, okay, I have a net cash flow, and part of that I will use it to, once it starts being positive, I will start to pay back my loans. And also to pay back dividends to the stake, dividends, revenues to the stake shareholders.
What exploration cost what exploration cost is included?
Yeah, I didn't include here exploration cost. Usually the exploration cost, we don't add it in when we calculate. I will go to the NPV calculation, and that's usually not included in our calculations. Okay. Remember, we are making some simplifications. Okay, so I think there we have the net cash flow, and here we can calculate, with time, we can calculate the economical indicators. That mainly, the ones that we are going to cover in this session is NPV and IRR. But they are basically related, almost similar. Okay, and that's going to give us some indication of the health or how good the project is. What is the value of the project? And of course, there are some things that I'm not saying here. You have also some amortization. You have also some say depreciation. We are trying to keep it simple. Okay, and also this capex here, I'm taking out the downstream part, but that also, when you pay this capex, that goes to service companies, that goes to providers, that goes to the people that make the components. Drillex, you might use service companies for some things, some others you pay to the company that you pay, etc. Also salaries, consultants, these are external people. Also chemicals, you buy it from a company. So this is not only inside the same company, but also all the interfaces that the company has, that the company has. Okay. So if we can have, so let's show you more or less how it looks like. So cash flow with time. And I guess you have seen this picture before, that we have at the initial phase of the project we have very big expenditures, and if we are in an offshore project, that really is a very deep valley where we are taking loans and we are just spending money. And then at some point we start producing and we start getting revenue. Okay? And then that decline is basically just because the production is also declining. So the revenues, they're also declining with time until I reach just, you know, maybe a minimum. And if you see here, you see a difference between onshore and offshore. Onshore, remember the discussion that we really don't need to have everything in place to start producing. We can do it gradually. And usually the investments, they are much less than for an offshore project. Okay, now we remember that we have, let's make it every year. Okay, let's make like a table. Year. These calculations, when we are calculating these economic indicators that are going to help us to decide if to go forward with the project or not, we have year, we have capex, okay, then we have opex, then we have revenue. What else do we have? Drillex. Okay, and here you have 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, so I can sum all of the expenses in one column, and also the tax. Okay, I'm forgetting the tax. And royalties. So I can summarize all of that in just one row that will be in one column that will be expenses. I ran again out of space. Another purpose for next year. And then I have expenses, revenues. Okay, and then I have my cash flow at the end. Okay, and as I told you initially, during the first years, we're going to have capex, we're going to have drillex, we are not going to have to pay any tax or royalties, and then with time, this is going to disappear. Now the royalties never go away, but the drillex, yes, and then opex, revenue, so it will look something like during the first years. We have values in these two. We have 0 here, 0, 0, 0. Here we have values. Okay. 0, 0. So here it will be very negative. And then this will be 0, but this will start come positive, 0, negative. Okay, expenses negative, positive. Okay, cash flow initially maybe negative or positive, and then 0, minus, plus, 0, minus, plus, plus. Okay, tricky. Okay, so you get this behavior in time, that you have initially negative cash flow and then you have positive cash flow. Now we want to compound all of that, all of those values in one single number, trying to put everything in one single number. So it will be very nice just to sum all of these values. The thing is that they happen at different years, and as you know, the value of the money is not the same 10 years from now than today. They have different value. This is in dollars of year. So by the way, this year 0 is, it means at the end of the year 0 of the project. Okay, this we are counting from where we took the decision to, so this is where I took the decision gate 0, I think, was it? Was it right? That we decided that the identification of the business case and we decided to go for it. Okay, So that's why we are excluding here exploration. That everything, all of that happened before DG0.
Sorry, why do you have revenue 2 times?
2 times here?
Or
Expenses.
third and the...
Oh yeah, I made a mistake. Yeah, this should be taken. Now I have space. Thank you. Okay. Good that someone is paying attention. Okay, so remember, so I have to put all of them in the same reference. And for that I use, maybe you have heard also before, the present value. Okay. The current worth of a future sum of money. And current, but I'm saying I'm making the analysis usually in the first year, okay, which is year 0, and I want to bring everything to the same reference. And to do that, I use a very simple formula called BP equal to B future. So this is the present value, the future value, times 1 over 1 plus I to the power of n. And n is the year where the future value is spent or gained. Okay. So if you are just, this is something that happened, for example, the future value is some revenue that you're going to get due to sales of oil. So and that's going to happen in year 8, that will be 8. If it's, for example, capex, that is going to happen in year 1, so you're going to put number 1 here. It's the year in which that happened. And also please note that we is just by convention. We do this sum in every year, at the end of every year. And what happens, sometimes we have that the rate is not constant, but is going to fluctuate along a year, okay, 0 to 365 days. So we have really to make kind of an integral to see how much money we made in that year. Okay, we cannot just assume a constant value, but we have to say how much we produce and what was the price of that oil. Okay, so then we create another column, and this I is the interest, the yeah, the interest, but it has another name. Discount rate. Okay. So I is the interest or the discount rate. Okay, the rate at which the money is going to lose, the number is going to lose its value with time. And we can use different, you're going to see just soon, we can use different values for that, but we assume usually one constant when we execute these calculations. And then in this column we put this cash flow present value of cash flow. We are discounting, multiplying that times 1 plus I, and just 1 plus I, we usually refer to it like the compound factor. And I plus I, 1 over I, we usually refer to this as the discount factor. Okay. And at the end, I can make a sum of all of those present values of the cash flow that they are made in the same year, and that's what I call the NPV. Okay, the net present value. And if I want to go for that project, the net present value has to be positive. Okay? And if it's very positive, it means that I will get a high financial gain for this project. Yes? Maybe this is, how many of you saw this before? Not many? Okay. Some of you have seen it for the first time. Okay. That is the main economical indicator of the project. Okay. Okay, and I think we can take a formula. Okay, so let's take that figure. It's not exactly correct, okay, but okay. Like initially we have the construction of the platform, the topside facilities, we have the installation of the pipeline, we have the drilling and the completion, okay, and then we start having some the income and the cost in the operation. So that's what gives you at the end the profile, the total cash flow profile. This figure I don't like it so much because if you are drilling, then you couldn't have production before that, right? So really should be, the production should start someplace here, for example, if you are going to make it stepwise. So the figure should be shifted, the green part should be shifted to the right. Okay? Just be careful. Okay, the formula, if we make it more mathematically, in a more mathematical way, is going to be is something that we do every year. Okay, the ultimate driver in exploration and production operations. Okay, so we have the sum. I, in this case, don't be confused. I is the year, okay, or current year. I'm going to go year by year. N is the total number of years. And this R is what I call this interest or discount rate. Okay. We like our column description, but at the end, if you want to compound everything in one formula, that's how you do it. And the revenue is this part, oil price, oil production. We can substitute plus gas plus times gas price. So here it should be more complex. If you have a gas production, also plus gas production plus gas price. Okay. Minus capex, minus opex, and minus the tax. In this course, I'm going to give you some small orientation about tax, but we are going usually to neglect it. Neglect in this course. We really don't need to prove the point to calculate NPV. We really don't need to use it. So let's take one other figure. Okay. So see more or less graphically how what can we control in this NPV. So in the oil rate, we can decide, remember one very important decision variable that we had was the plateau height. Okay, and the length of the production, we have many things. So we can change the plateau height to change this parameter, which is the revenue, and is what is going to give us the positive value of the project. Then the oil price, we really cannot do much about it, cannot control it, but we have to be sure that our NPV that we obtain is robust. If we change the oil price, that will still be positive. Okay. Then capex, again, if depends what I select. If I want to go for an FPSO, I want to go for a platform. If I want to use this processing facility, if I want to drill this number of wells, so that's impacted by capex. This capex in this case has the drillex inside. Okay. And the opex depends on the size, how much fluids I'm going to produce. So everything is interconnected. So the OPEX depends how much fluids I'm going to produce, how much do I have to process, how much chemicals do I need, how many people do I need to operate my facility. Okay, so everything is in a way interconnected. So let's how do we get estimates at an early phase of the project? So we need, so to get estimates, of cost values, okay, and revenues, so production rates, we need the input from the following specialists. Okay, so we need first a petroleum engineer. Okay, that is the one in charge of the reserves. Okay, is in charge of the location of the well and number of wells. Okay, is in charge of the what we call production scheduling. Okay, and is responsible on many other things, but basically the production scheduling, how much I'm going to produce with time and how much I can produce with time, where I'm going to place my wells for better recovery, and the reserves, how much do I have in place, what is the extent. Okay, and also the fluids. Okay. Then comes the drilling engineer. And the drilling engineer, it's estimating the drilling and completion costs. How many days it's going to take, that according to the trajectory, proposed trajectory, how long the wells have to be, according to the formation and the petrophysical properties, what kind of equipment do I have to have in the well to produce it. Then comes the facilities engineer. Okay, and that's maybe the processing, someone that knows about processing. And so here it's going to tell me about production, processing facilities. Okay, how big, what is the size, what kind of equipment do I need, do you need to treat the oil and the gas in a different way, do you need to treat gas, water, how much water are you expecting, the size, the cost, so size, cost, and equipment. And also transportation, okay? They also deal sometimes with transportation. And equipment required. Then we have some operations and maintenance. That they are going to tell us how much do I have to expend more or less in maintenance costs, manpower, how many people do I have to employ. Then then we have one that is the offshore engineer. Okay, that will take care of the offshore structure. And layout of the system. course, you have to have a project manager. Okay. And you have some other positions. We are not going to go too much in depth there, but you need human resources. Okay, what other manpower requirements your project is going to have? For example, you need also someone that will take care of the fiscal system, so it's the fiscal system expert or a consultant, and then you need the corporate planner. Okay. That mainly to calculate the tax and the royalties and the agreement with the government, the licensing scheme, and the corporate planner, that how the current project, how are you going to integrate with other projects that the company have, okay? Or how are you going to finance it with some projects that the company has? You see quite a lot of people involved in the process. Okay, so now we have, let's talk about another indicator, okay? Another indicator of economical health of the project. And that's the IRR, internal rate of return. And that we define it as the interest rate. Let me exactly copy what I wrote here. Maybe I didn't copy it. Okay, so if we make a plot of the NPV, okay, versus this I, okay, this discount rate, okay, or the interest. Okay, and let's say initially we have a positive number, and let's say that we are using 8%. Okay, if we reduce that number, we go all the way to 0. We will have a maximum, because that means that the money doesn't lose any value with time. Okay, so really that maximizes the NPV. Remember, this NPV is the sum of all the present values, okay, of the cash flow of the project every year. But if we start increasing it, we will see that it will reduce value until it's 0. NPV at this particular point is 0. And that's what we call this IRR, is what we call the internal rate of return of the project. So it's the interest rate that makes the project NPV exactly equal to 0. And you can use it to compare how far away you are from the interest rate, okay, from the current interest rate. If you say that it's 8 and you obtain one that has 16, you are relatively far away, okay? But if you obtain, for example, 8.1, that means that really a small variation can make it negative, has a big impact. Okay, that's another indicator, and there are some other indicators that we are not going to discuss here. Okay, in this course, we are going to use these two main things to try to define or trying to determine if our project has value or not. Okay. Yes. Any questions so far? I say, or I propose we don't take any break today and we finish a bit early. That's okay with you? Or you need a break just to wake up, to get some coffee?
You can proceed.
Huh? Continue. Yeah? Okay. So I think we covered that. Let's put just one more figure, just to put it pretty. Okay, and that's how maybe this figure goes better up when we are talking about when in time it happens. You can see, for example, this is actually in the notes, okay? So you can see initially you have just capex, you have no positive cash flow, and then you start having OPEX, you have the royalties, you have the tax, and you have the also some capex initially. Okay, so you can see how it is split in time, but at the end what I want is the sum of all of that, but in the same reference, in the same present value. Please don't forget to discount it. Okay, this process that I describe here is discounting the amount. Okay, discounting the cash flow. Okay, then so one way, you see there are many things that affect this NPV, right? So one way that unusually, so let's see how do we quantify uncertainty, the effect of uncertainty in the NPV. Okay, what happens if capex is 20% more than what we really capex? Let's say we don't have one exact value, but we have a distribution, okay, from a maximum capex to a minimum capex. So how do we put that in so that's capex, and that's a PDF of capex. Okay, how do we put that in the formula? And you already know, well, I can execute Monte Carlo, or you already have some ideas, but really the industry does something, some companies, they do something much more simpler, that is sensitivity studies using the how do we call it, the principle of ceteris paribus, a word in Latin that means all others same. Okay, you change one and keep all the others the same and see what happens with the output. So the NPV depends on many things. Okay, let's say it depends on capex, and capex you have a variation from minimum, a base, and a maximum, and you have OPEX, and you have revenue. So you make a change keeping all the other constant, and you see how is your NPV. Then you change again, keep all the other constant, and see how is your NPV. How is your NPV changing? I told you, be careful, because there are many other combinations, and we are missing, if we do this kind of analysis, we are missing some combinations that might be worse or that might be better. But to be fair, that's what most of the industry is using. So first we have to define a base case scenario.
Can you scroll up a little bit?
Yes. Ceteris paribus, okay, and this is done using tornado charts, or also spider plots, and it's very simple to make. You're going to have on the one of the exercises, you will have to make a tornado chart, okay, a tornado or a spider plot. So you have to define a base case scenario, okay? So that means defining a base value for example, oil price, for capex, for OPEX, etc. Whatever value you think that will have a variation in the life of the field, okay? Might have some change. Then you have to define a range for each variable. Okay? For example, you say the oil price might change between a minimum, a base value, and a maximum. Okay. And then you run computations, calculate the value of interest. In our case, this particular case is the economic indicator NPV, using a minimum or changing one at a time the variables. Okay, changing, calculate the value of interest, in this case the NPV, changing one at a time the variables. So you run, you assume for example the minimum price, and then you calculate NPV. You calculate the base oil price and you calculate NPV, and then you say maximum oil price and calculate NPV, while keeping, this is while keeping all other variables at their base value. All the others is going to be based in the base value, right? So to make the plot, you have to define then like that. You can still see. So you have a factor x2. For example, you have here capex. Let's call this variable. X mean, x base, x max. Okay. And here you have Drilex, for example. And here you have oil price. There you have OPEX. You can have many things. You can have also the I, the interest. You define a minimum value and a maximum value. And for that you compute the NPV. NPV of the minimum, NPV of the base, and NPV of max. Remember that for each one of them you're just changing this capex. All the others are remaining in the base value. Yep. And at the end, to make the plot, you have to compute the, it's good because they have different values, okay? Capex can go in the range of millions of Norwegian kroners. Drilex also, but the oil price can go just in the range of dollars, okay? 40, 60, 100. And I can go in the range of, for example, 2 to 10 or 20%. So they are in different range. So what we want to do is normalize and put all of them in the same base. And for that we apply normalization. So we say we create so first we say let's call it here I use this name but I don't like it so much, but let's normalize. Okay, x, this is minimum, normalize, x base, normalized, and x max, normalized. So here I'm going to put x mean minus x base divided by x base, okay, times 100. And that's going to give me a percentage, for example, let's say minus 20%. What happens if I lower the value of the oil price in 20%, minus 20%? This is going to give me, of course, 0, because that's the value I'm using for the base case. And here I'm going to have x max minus x mean, minus x base divided by x base times 100. And I do that for capex, Drilex, oil price. So really I'm changing the oil price between, for example, 40 and 60. And I'm changing capex between 1 billion and 0.9 billion. But at the end, the change around the base case is the same. Maybe it might be 10%, 20%. That clear? Yep. And I do the same with the results of NPV. Okay, the NPV I say, so normalized. So I say NPV for the minimum minus NPV for the base divided by NPV base times 100. And similar for the maximum. For this will be just 0. Okay, actually all of these values will be the same, right? Yeah, because I'm not changing anything here. All of these is using the same value. So all of these are the same. Okay. And then I make a plot. I might use two types of plot. One of them, and I took this from one PDO. That's a tornado chart. So that's the variation. This 20% is the variation in the variable. This plus minus 20% that I told you, 10%, etc. Okay? And on the x-axis we have the variation in NPV that each one of them gives. So that this chart, if I say I change the capex plus minus 20%, is just going to give me a very small variation around 10 billion NOK. Okay. But if I change, for example, the reserves from the minimum and the maximum that I can have a variation almost from 0, from a very little positive NPV to 20 billion NOK. And the most important, if I make a variation in the oil price plus minus 30%, I can be negative, which is a very unattractive project, to a very positive project. And this has to be reported, and here you have next to it you have the change in the price, okay? The change in the NPV, sorry. This number is giving you, this is 28, and that number is 6.6. Okay? You know how to read tornado chart? You think you can know how to make it? Yes? Okay. And there is another way that I can plot the same information, that is using a spider plot. Okay. Where I put the variation of NPV. So here you have that's the base case, exactly in the center, where I have no variation, everything is 0. And then I start changing. What happens if I change, this blue line is, for example, the oil price. So my NPV, if I make a variation of 35%, I will have a 40% variation in the NPV. Okay? If I make a variation of minus 35% in the oil price, I will have a variation of 39% in the NPV. Okay, it's another way to show exactly the same information. But in this case, that's why I'm making the normalization, because I don't want these axes to have units. They should be adimensional. So that's why I normalize everything. Okay, what I have to give is what are the values of the base case. What is the price that I used in the base case? What is the capex that I used in the base case, the OPEX, etc. Clear? Crystal clear? Too easy to explain? Okay. Now let's go to the last part of the lecture. So let me just put some pictures again. So this is if we make a change in the NPV of I don't remember exactly what was in that case. I think it was the price. Okay. And you have the base case, the NPV goes negative, then goes positive. Here this figure is not so good also. Should have the axis. Okay. So the negative and then goes positive. If the price is lower of the oil price, then I will have even, yeah, maybe this is another variation on something else. I'm not sure if did it say here, right? Yeah. But you can have changes in the cash flow depending on which value do you choose, the minimum, the base, and the maximum. Okay, let's that this is a topic that I'm going to, we are going to use it in the exercise, that is Gantt charts, Gantt diagrams, and I'm just going to put is a chart where you can show where the main tasks are taking place in time. So this axis at the top is, so this is a special diagram, chart or diagram used in project management that shows the occurrence when and the duration of important events in the design and construction of the field. Okay. And you have this is a timeline where you have from, for example, the first 6 years. That's especially important during the planning phase, the first 6 years. And then you see when am I going to execute each phase, from DG0 all the way to DG3, DG4. Okay, when I'm going to start selling the oil, producing, when I'm going to finish the drilling and completion, when I'm going to have already my offshore structure in place, when it's going to be manufactured, etc. Okay, not much to say here, maybe just to put the photo of the guy, and you can read later. And that is a very useful, that's a lemma from project manager. So if you ever end up in project management, you will have to make your prayer to Henry Gantt, okay, to say thank you for this nice tool. But so the most important is the last part, that, okay. So I'm not going to discuss how to do it here, but you can read in this website how to make it, and that will help you in the exercise. It's very short, relatively simple task, but I think it's nice that you learn how to make it by yourself. Okay, but just go to this. This is useful for the exercise. Okay, now we go to the last topic of the class, and please have patience. We are about to, we are going to finish soon. That is how to deal with uncertainty in decisions, okay, when I have to make a decision, or with integer variables. So far we have said, okay, we have capex, we can make a distribution of, a probability function, we can use OPEX, we can use the price, maybe treat it like that. But what happens when I have a decision to make? That's something that is discrete. I can either do this or that. I can take two paths. Okay. And for example, if I have one common example, if I say what if that some example is decisions. I think you write it. Okay. Another example is alternative development options. If I say, for example, I want to use a platform, I want to use subsea to beach, or if I want to use an FPSO. These are three different things that I cannot really use a distribution for that, but I still want to be able to quantify uncertainty. So for that we use a very useful tool called decision trees. Okay. Decision trees allow me to deal with integer variables. Okay, something that is not continuous. And a decision tree, we'll see later. We'll see just now in a second. It's we can build them. So we have some square nodes. These are called decision nodes. Then we have some round nodes that these are chance. And then we have these kind of nodes which are end nodes, like a triangle. And let's maybe show you with an example. Okay, so I have a decision node that is a square, and I say, do I explore or not? Not just I don't have nothing happens. Okay, just so for now this I is just listing all the cases that we can have. Okay, and initially I have a decision explore or not, and this will just give me no value. Just I don't lose anything, I don't earn anything, that's all, no problem. That's this NPV column that I have here. Okay, then I decide to explore, and then I have this node should be a chance node. This is something that I cannot control, and I can say I can be lucky and I can have a discovery on this well, or I don't have a discovery, and in this case I have 90% chance probability that the well will be dry. That I define, an expert defines it for me. Then if I have a discovery, then I have further another chance node, and this chance tells me what I discovered might be big, what I discovered might be medium, might be low, or might be not commercial. Okay. And for each one of these cases I have certain NPV. If it's dry, I already spend money and it's going to be negative, this NPV, right? Because I spend money drilling the well. Then if it's high reserve, I'm going to have high NPV, I'm going to have a very high NPV. If it's medium, then I will be B, C, and D. Okay? So A is greater than B, is greater than C, and greater than D. Okay? And E is just negative. So you see we have one, so you have to make the tree for yourself for every situation where you think you require to make a decision tree. If you have a decision, or if you have something that you have a finite number of possibilities, then you have to use a decision tree. Okay? And you have here one decision and two chance nodes. So really, if you see this part, this is similar to exactly the distribution that we calculated, right? Or not? This distribution on the reserves, we already, you tell me, okay, we did an exercise and we found something like that for the TRR, right? So how do I include, if I already made that information, make that calculation, how do I include it here? Here I have to have discrete, not something that is continuous, to make that calculation. Okay, so how do I convert from something that has has a range to something that has only 4 options? Any of you knows? No, so let's make that. Okay, for the indecision trees, to discrete values. So we want to change from, for example, if this is TRR and we calculated our distribution, our PDF, we want to get just 4 values, for example, in this particular case. We want to have 4 values. Okay, remember that we want to, okay, we don't want to have a gap, but let's leave it like this for now. So I have TRR1 with a probability 1, TRR2 with a probability 2, TRR3 with a probability 3, and TRR4 with a probability 4. Okay? So how do I do that? Do you have any idea? No? What we have to make is we have to discretize in how many one way, okay? One way to discretize, to do it, is the following. Divide the PDF in sections. I divide, let's say, in 4 sections. And for each one of these sections, I'm going to calculate first the area under the curve. That's going to give me what? The probability, right? The probability of that particular section. So the integral under the curve, the area, sorry, under the curve, provides the probability of the section. So I have now the probability, and that's what I'm going to assign to each one of these branches. That's going to be this 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. Right? But now how do I define the number that goes here? TRR1. How do I define it? I have to calculate, compute for the value TRR1. I have to calculate the most probable value in the section, because I have to pick only one representative value of that section, and the one that I choose usually is the most representative, is the one that is the most frequent. That's the mode, the most probable. So I have to find the most probable value in the section. That's called the mode of each section. Okay. And you can do that in several ways. There is a graphical way that you can use, or you can just repeat your frequency analysis only using these values. Okay? Yes? More or less clear? And that's how you obtain these options, and you change from a continuous probability distribution to a discrete values. Of course, if here I take 20, I will be close. If I take many options here, I will be closer and closer to my continuous distribution, but it will be more expensive. Okay? Now, another trick that we make, so you see here we have the NPV of each option. That is something that I can calculate. And now I have the probability of each option. And the probability is if I say 0.1 times 0.2, that's going to give me this probability. It's a multiplication of all the chance nodes probability of that particular branch. So let's put that here. Of all probabilities. Okay, and remember this is usually from chance nodes of that particular branch. So you have to start with 0.2, you have to go back, multiply times 0.1, and then you go back, and here is a decision, no probability, no chance. So that's, I stop there. That's the probability of that option, 2%. Then I have 4%, 2%, and so forth. That clear? Where that number came from? Yes? Now I want to evaluate if I'm sitting here in this node, I want to evaluate if to go for exploration or not. That's the most helpful, that's really what I want to know. So one way to do it is to say, if I do nothing, I just have 0. Now, what is the value of all of these options to do exploration? What is the compound or the average value of that option? So for that, I just make the sum of the probability of each option times its NPV. And that's going to give me a compound NPV. And then I compare the two options. If this, for example, is very negative, I have a clear option. I have a clear indication that I shouldn't go for exploration because it's negative. But if I say, if this one is very positive, I say there is a big chance that I'm going to get a positive NPV, that it will be successful. That clear? Yeah? Let me show you a value case with numbers. Okay, so for example, you have the oil price. Okay, can be $10. This is a very old from an old document. Okay, $10 and $8, and $10 has 70% probability, and 8 has 30%. And then each one of them, how much is going to be my initial investment, and then each one of them has how much are going to be my reserves. And here they decided to discretize only in 3. So I have to put all the cases. I have 18 cases. I have the probability of each case, that you know how I calculate 0.2 times 0.3 times 0.7. Okay, for the second 0.7, 0.3, 0.7, and so forth. And then I have the NPV associated with it, which with each option. Okay, the price, I have the price, I have the initial investment, I have the reserves, and I can calculate the NPV. Then I multiply, sum, and that gives me that's called the mean estimated ENV. Okay, estimated mean value of the branch. Sorry, it's EMV, expected monetary value. I confused to estimated value, or we can also say the MEV, mean expected value. So this is the MEV, mean expected value of the branch. So every time I have, in this case I just had chance nodes, okay? So really we can do that with Monte Carlo. We don't need to do it with decision tree. If everything is continuous and I have a distribution for every parameter, there is really no need to apply decision trees. Okay, it's only when I have decisions or I have integer values, when I have options, alternatives. Okay, but this allows me to calculate, if I calculate the MEV of the branch, if I calculate the MEV of all of these branch, and this gives me a positive value, then that's a good indication to go for it, to take the decision and go for exploration. Okay? Yes, and I think that's all we have for today. So any question before we close? No? So what we saw today was, a lot of information, but I hope you capture more or less. So first, the economy. You see what are the main incomes of cash to the project and the main outputs of cash, the outcomes of cash. Then we say that we can do all of these things in some kind of a table format, and we do it yearly. We put how much are we going to get, how much are we paying, what comes in and what comes out. Most important, we have to calculate the present value, because at the end we want to compound all of these numbers, but they have to be in the same reference. And for that we use the present value concept. Okay? Then we say there are two main indicators. The NPV, if it's positive, it's a very attractive, very financially solid project. If it's negative, not attractive. And we have the internal rate of return. Then we talked about that one kind of analysis that we make for the NPV is sensitivity studies. And that's really against what I told you last class or the previous classes, that we don't take really a distribution of each parameter, but we just take the base, minimum, and maximum. And we use this ceteris paribus, okay, principle. Change one, keep everything else constant. Okay? And we can use tornado charts, and we can use spider plots. And remember, to plot we have to normalize. That's extremely important. Gantt charts that you can read later when you need to use for the exercise. And decision trees to include integer variables and when we have to make a decision. And for that case, sometimes we have to discretize continuous variables. We have to discretize and put them in the decision tree. Okay? Any question? No? Okay. So let's close the session, and hopefully the exercise will be there tomorrow, and the deadline will be for, in 2-3 Sundays maybe. So let's see. We deliver it Friday, so the deadline will be for the 12th, probably. Okay, so you have 2 weeks. You have to do something relatively quick, which is to select when do you want to have the session, the exercise session. The students already wrote on its learning, and you have to decide which one is more convenient for you. Is there any of you that cannot in one of these proposed slots? Huh? You can? You wrote to them? No. Okay, just write to them to see if they can fit another slot someplace, okay? Okay, see you.